Welcome to Let's Run It Back. October is officially here, which means it's time to dim the lights, grab your candy stash early, and get ready for the spooky season. To celebrate the start of Halloween month, we're putting together a special compilation that blends everything you love about this time of year. From the eerie campfire tales of Are You Afraid of the Dark, to the spine-tingling chills of Goosebumps, to some of the best Halloween specials across TV, and even a look back at the terrifying Final Destination movies we've covered. This video has it all. Think of it as your nostalgic jumpstart to the season of scares, where childhood thrills meet unforgettable frights. Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. We're officially kicking off October with a nostalgic deep dive into a show that defined Halloween for so many of us as kids. Are You Afraid of the Dark? With Halloween just around the corner, we'll be comparing the original Are You Afraid of the Dark series from the 90s with its 2019 reboot. Both versions have their strengths, but today I'll be sharing why I think the original edges out the newer one, especially when it comes to that classic anthology format. So let's dive into this spooky comparison. And don't forget, this is just the beginning of our Halloween lineup. Plenty more nostalgic and horror-themed videos are coming your way throughout the month. Make sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss any of the eerie fun. The original Are You Afraid of the Dark? 1990 to 1996, 1999 to 2000. Let's start with the show that sparked it all. The original Are You Afraid of the Dark? Premiered in 1990 and ran for 5 spooky seasons until 1996. Then, much to fans' delight, it came back for a brief revival from 1999 to 2000, adding another 2 seasons to the mix. Created by DJ McHale and Ned Candell, the show quickly became a fan favorite, especially as part of Nickelodeon's Snick lineup. If you were a 90s kid, you'll remember just how big a deal Snick was. Every Saturday night we'd gather in front of the TV for a night of entertainment. And while shows like Clarissa Explains It All That, and Kenan and Kel were fun, it was Are You Afraid of the Dark? That really set the tone for those who loved a good scare. The original series was known for its anthology format, where each episode featured a completely new and independent spooky story. This structure worked wonders for the show. It allowed the writers to explore all kinds of horror, from supernatural to psychological to just plain creepy, without being tied down to an overarching plot. And let me tell you, that was a genius move. Each episode felt fresh, you never knew what to expect, and the scares came in all shapes and sizes, keeping us on our toes. Why the anthology format worked so well. One of the reasons I believe the original series was so effective is because the anthology format allowed each episode to stand alone. This meant that each story was a self-contained mini-horror film, where the stakes were clear and the resolution came by the end of the episode. You didn't have to invest in long, drawn-out storylines. You got your scares in bite-sized, perfectly paced chunks. It's like a sampler platter of childhood nightmares, giving you a taste of everything the horror genre has to offer without getting bogged down in an overarching plot that could slow things down. The structure also gave the creators the freedom to tap into a wide variety of horror themes. One week you get a story about a haunted dollhouse. The next week it'd be a cursed painting, and then maybe a ghost or a creature from the depths of the sea. This variety kept the series engaging and fun, especially for young viewers who were just starting to explore the genre. And while not every episode was a home run, when the show was on, it really delivered. There are so many iconic episodes from the original Are You Afraid of the Dark that it's hard to narrow it down, but I'll share a few that have stood the test of time and still give me chills whenever I think about them. The Tale of the Midnight Madness. This episode is probably one of the most universally beloved in the series. It's about a struggling old movie theater that screens a vintage vampire movie, only for the vampire to step off the screen and into the real world. The vampire's chilling presence in the eerie old movie theater setting made this episode a classic. For many fans, this one ranks high on the scare-o-meter. In The Tale of the Lonely Ghost, Amanda is dared to spend time in a haunted house by her cousin Beth. Inside, she finds a mirror with "Help Me" written on it and encounters the ghost of a lonely young girl. Amanda soon learns the tragic story of the girl's abandonment and untimely death, making this one of the more haunting and emotional episodes of the series. The Tale of the Dead Man's Float. This episode is often cited as one of the scariest of the series, and for good reason. A haunted swimming pool becomes the home of a decaying, waterlogged ghost that terrorizes swimmers. The design of the ghost in this episode is genuinely terrifying, even by today's standards, and it's the kind of monster that sticks with you long after the episode ends. The Tale of the Ghastly Grinner. Now this one, about a comic book villain coming to life, leans into more surreal and grotesque horror. The villain's wide, toothy grin is nightmare fuel, and the episode's mix of comic book style and real-world horror made it a fan favorite. These episodes, and many others, are the reason why Are You Afraid of the Dark became a cornerstone of kids' TV in the 90s. It wasn't just about the scares. It was about the stories, the characters, and the creativity that went into every single episode. Production and atmosphere. 90s horror charm. One of the most charming things about the original show is the production style. Yes, by today's standards, the special effects are dated, but that low-budget practical effects approach only added to the charm. There's something about the gritty, shadowy sets and simple but effective creature designs that gave the show an eerie, almost timeless quality. It didn't rely on CGI or overly complicated visuals to get its scares across. Instead, it leaned into practical effects, shadowy lighting, and atmospheric tension. Let's not forget about the unforgettable intro sequence. The match being lit, the swing set moving by itself, the creepy doll in the attic, the abandoned rowboat, combined with that haunting theme song. It's the kind of intro that immediately set the mood. Even today, hearing the theme song brings back all the feelings of excitement and anticipation that we felt as kids, knowing we were in for a spooky ride. The 2019 Are You Afraid of the Dark reboot. Now let's talk about the 2019 reboot, which brought Are You Afraid of the Dark back to life for a new generation. The reboot kicked off with Carnival of Doom and ran for 3 seasons, each with a different spooky storyline. Unlike the original series, the reboot took a serialized approach, with each season functioning more like a miniseries focused on a single overarching plot. Season 1, Carnival of Doom, 2019. The first season of the reboot, Carnival of Doom, was definitely the strongest, in my opinion. It follows the Midnight Society as they get wrapped up in the real-life version of one of their campfire stories, a traveling carnival run by the sinister Mr. Top Hat. The carnival setting was a perfect backdrop for an Are You Afraid of the Dark story, bringing a creepy, haunted carnival vibe that felt nostalgic yet fresh. One of the things I enjoyed about Carnival of Doom was that it didn't shy away from the darker elements of horror, while still keeping things family-friendly. Mr. Topata was a memorable villain with an unsettling charisma, and the carnival atmosphere lent itself to some genuinely eerie moments. That said, the serialized nature of the season did make it feel like it dragged in spots. The suspense was there, but it didn't have the punchiness of the original, where you got a new story every episode. Instead, it built slowly over 3 episodes, which worked for the carnival setting but also felt like a slower burn. Season 2, Curse of the Shadows, 2021. The second season, Curse of the Shadows, took on a new Midnight Society and shifted the focus to a coastal town plagued by a mysterious, shadowy entity. While I liked the concept, I felt like the pacing issues were more noticeable here. The slow build that worked in Carnival of Doom didn't quite have the same effect in Curse of the Shadows. The new cast did a decent job, and there were definitely creepy moments, but the story felt stretched too thin at times. Season 3, Ghost Island, 2022. By the time we got to Ghost Island, the third season of the reboot, I found that the series was starting to lose some of its edge. The idea of the Midnight Society traveling to a haunted island resort had potential, but the execution felt repetitive. The setting was interesting, and there were some good moments of tension, but overall, it didn't capture the same magic as the first season. The serialized format again dragged in certain areas, and it felt like the story could have been told more effectively in a shorter time frame. Comparing the two, anthology versus serialized storytelling. So how does the reboot compare to the original? For me, the original series still comes out on top, and I think a big part of that is due to the format. The anthology structure of the 90s version just worked better for this kind of show. Each episode was a new story, a new scare, and you never knew what you were going to get. That unpredictability was part of what made it so fun. The reboot, on the other hand, went for a serialized approach, telling one story over the course of a season. While this allowed for more character development and deeper storylines, I feel like it lost some of that spontaneous bite-sized terror that the original delivered so well. There's a certain magic to getting a complete self-contained horror story in under 30 minutes, and I think that's where the original Are You Afraid of the Dark really excelled. Don't get me wrong, the reboot had its moments. Carnival of Doom was a solid entry, and I enjoyed how it paid homage to the original series while bringing something new to the table. But overall, I think the anthology format of the original gave it more variety, more scares, and ultimately, more staying power. Final thoughts. In the end, while the 2019 reboot had its strengths, especially in its first season, the original Are You Afraid of the Dark remains the superior version for me. The anthology format allowed for more creativity and variety in the types of horror stories it could tell, and the show's practical effects and atmospheric production gave it a timeless quality. It's the kind of show that, even decades later, still holds up as a great introduction to the horror genre for young audiences. As we get closer to Halloween, I'll be diving into even more nostalgic TV shows and movies that shaped our childhoods and gave us all those deliciously creepy vibes we still love today. Thanks for sticking around for this comparison of Are You Afraid of the Dark, both the classic 90s version and its 2019 reboot. It's always fun to dive into shows that brought us chills as kids and see how they've evolved for a new generation. But as much as I appreciate the reboot for trying something different, the original will always have a special place in my heart for how it introduced so many of us to horror. Like I mentioned earlier, this video is just the start of our Halloween content. All month long, I'll be revisiting spooky shows, horror movies, and Halloween specials from the past that defined the season for me growing up. We've got some fun, nostalgic deep dives ahead, so stay tuned. If you're a fan of classic shows like this, or you just love reliving those eerie October nights, you won't want to miss what's coming up next. And hey, before you go, let me know in the comments, what's your favorite Are You Afraid of the Dark episode? Did the reboot do it for you, or are you all about that 90s anthology goodness like me? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Welcome back to Let's Run It Back, where we dive deep into the shows and movies that made our childhood so special. Today, we're traveling back to the 90s and taking a look at one of the most iconic children's horror shows of all time, Goosebumps. If you were a kid back then, you probably remember racing home after school to catch this show on Fox Kids. And for good reason. It was one of the most popular and memorable shows of the era. But what made Goosebumps such a phenomenon? Let's break it down from its origins in the world of children's literature to the legacy it's left behind. Before we talk about the TV show, we need to address the source material, the Goosebumps books. R.L. Stine created something truly special when he started this series back in 1992. At a time when children's literature was full of safe, predictable stories, Goosebumps brought something entirely different. Real scares, eerie atmospheres, and cliffhangers that made you want to grab the next book as soon as you finished one. Each book in the series was a standalone story, usually focusing on a young protagonist dealing with a strange, often supernatural situation. Whether it was a cursed Halloween mask, a ventriloquist dummy that came to life, or a haunted amusement park, the Goosebumps books hooked readers with their eerie but fun tales. And let me tell you, these books were everywhere. By the time the TV show premiered in 1995, the Goosebumps book series had already become a runaway success. In just a few short years, millions of copies had been sold around the world. R.L. Stine was being hailed as the Stephen King of children's literature. It was clear that there was a huge appetite for spooky, but not too scary, stories for kids, and Goosebumps filled that niche perfectly. But like any massive cultural hit, it was only a matter of time before the books found their way to the small screen.
You will beware, you're in for a scare.
Premiering in 1995 on Fox Kids, Goosebumps quickly became a favorite among viewers. If you grew up in the 90s, chances are you still remember that chilling theme song, the one that would play as a black, ominous figure floated through a creepy neighborhood. Just hearing those first few notes was enough to get your heart racing in anticipation of what terrifying tale was about to unfold. What made the show work so well was its commitment to bringing R.L. Stine's stories to life in a way that was faithful to the books, but also accessible to a young TV audience. Like the books, the show managed to capture that perfect balance between spooky and fun. It was scary enough to give kids a thrill, but it never crossed the line into territory that would give parents too much concern. The show took many of the most popular stories from the books and adapted them into half-hour or hour-long episodes. Some of the most memorable episodes include The Haunted Mask, Night of the Living Dummy, Say Cheese and Die, and The Werewolf of Fever Swamp. If you read the books, seeing these stories come to life on screen was a treat. Now, one of the interesting things about the Goosebumps TV show was its episodic nature. Each episode was a self-contained story, so you could jump in at any point without feeling like you missed anything. This format was perfect for the young audience the show was targeting. Kids could tune in, watch a spooky story, and then come back next week for something completely new. It also gave the show a lot of variety. One week you might be watching a story about a haunted camera that predicts accidents, and the next week you could be watching a tale about a summer camp with a sinister secret. The diversity of the stories kept things fresh and exciting. Behind the scenes, the development of the show was a fascinating process. R.L. Stine was deeply involved, ensuring that the TV adaptation stayed true to the tone of his books. But the production team also had to figure out how to take stories that worked on the page and make them visually compelling for TV. This meant creating practical effects and costumes that, while often campy, were still effective at delivering chills. And remember, this was the mid-90s. So the show didn't have access to the kind of CGI we see today. They had to rely on practical effects, prosthetics, and good old-fashioned suspense to keep the scares coming. Despite these limitations, the show excelled at creating a creepy atmosphere. One of the most iconic episodes, The Haunted Mask, is a perfect example of how well the show could create tension. In this story, a young girl buys a Halloween mask that, once she puts it on, starts to take over her personality and refuses to come off. The concept itself is terrifying, but the way the episode is shot, using dark lighting, unsettling music, and great pacing, makes it one of the standout stories of the series. The same can be said for Night of the Living Dummy, which introduced kids everywhere to Slappy, one of the creepiest characters in the Goosebumps universe. Slappy's sinister laugh and twisted sense of humor made him a fan-favorite villain, and he would go on to appear in several episodes throughout the series. By the time the show ended in 1998, it had cemented its place in 90s pop culture. Goosebumps was one of the most watched shows on Fox Kids, and for many kids of that era, it was their introduction to the horror genre. What's more, the show helped to further popularize the Goosebumps brand, which was already a powerhouse thanks to the books. Even after the show ended, reruns continued to air, keeping it alive for years to come. But what is the legacy of Goosebumps today? Well, for one, the show is still fondly remembered by those who grew up watching it. The 90s were a golden age for children's television, and Goosebumps stands alongside shows like Are You Afraid of the Dark as one of the defining horror series of the era. In fact, Many people still debate which show was better, Goosebumps or Are You Afraid of the Dark? Both shows had their own strengths. Goosebumps had the benefit of being based on a wildly popular book series, while Are You Afraid of the Dark had original, often more mature stories. But for a lot of kids, Goosebumps was the gateway into a love of all things spooky. Speaking of Are You Afraid of the Dark? I've actually covered both versions of that show in a previous video. If you're looking for even more spooky fun, I highly recommend checking it out as I continue to take on Halloween-themed shows, movies, and specials throughout the month of October. As for Goosebumps, the franchise hasn't exactly faded away. There have been modern takes on the property, including the recent Goosebumps movie starring Jack Black and a rebooted TV series. I have to admit, I haven't checked out the new adaptations yet. Maybe it's because I hold the original series so close to my heart, or maybe it's because I've heard mixed reviews about the newer takes. But hey, if enough of you want me to dive into the new movies or the rebooted show, let me know in the comments. Who knows, I might give them a shot and let you know what I think in a future video. One of the things I love most about revisiting Goosebumps is that it taps into a kind of nostalgia that's hard to find in modern kids' shows. The 90s were a different time. There was something special about the way these shows balanced being just scary enough for kids while still keeping things fun. It's that same balance that made Goosebumps such a massive hit and why so many people still remember it fondly today. Now, before I wrap things up, I've got a question for you all. Back in the day, did you prefer Goosebumps or Are You Afraid of the Dark? I know that debate has been going on for decades, and I'm curious to hear where you all stand. Let me know in the comments below. Hey everyone, welcome to Let's Run It Back. Halloween season is upon us, and what better way to get in the spooky spirit than by watching some classic Halloween-themed TV episodes. Today, I've put together a list of 13 Halloween episodes that you need to check out this year. We're starting off with a few animated classics, then diving into some live-action gems, so there's something here for everyone. Whether you're looking for laughs, lighthearted frights, or some seriously spooky vibes, this list has you covered. Let's dive in. One, The Simpsons, Treehouse of Horror 5, 1994. The Simpsons is a Halloween staple, and Treehouse of Horror 5 is one of the most beloved entries in the series' long-running tradition. This episode gives us 3 chillingly hilarious segments. A fantastic Shining parody where Homer loses his mind due to a lack of TV and beer, a time-traveling mishap that turns the past and future upside down, and a nightmarish story where the students at Springfield Elementary are turned into food. Each segment is packed with dark humor, memorable moments, and eerie animation. It's a must-watch for fans of the show and anyone who enjoys a clever blend of horror and comedy. Plus, this episode is one of the darkest in terms of humor, so it's perfect for those who like their Halloween specials with a little extra bite.
Who lives in a pineapple under the sea? Absorbent and yellow and porous is he.
2. SpongeBob SquarePants, Scaredy Pants. In this fun-filled Halloween special, SpongeBob is determined to stop being the one who's always scared and tries to turn the tables by becoming the scariest sponge in Bikini Bottom. With the help of Patrick, he puts together a terrifying costume to spook everyone at Mr. Krabs' Halloween party. However, things don't go as planned, and instead of scaring the guests, SpongeBob's costume gets laughs. But when their antics accidentally summon the legendary Flying Dutchman, the real scares begin. Appalled by SpongeBob's portrayal of him, the Dutchman brings genuine fright to the party. It's a light-hearted yet spooky episode that showcases the best of SpongeBob's quirky humor and Halloween fun. 3. King of the Hill Hilloween. In Hilloween, Hank Hill finds himself at odds with a religious activist who wants to cancel Halloween in Arlen, fearing it promotes evil. What follows is a hilarious battle between Hank, who just wants to uphold the tradition of Halloween for his son Bobby, and the town's overzealous moral crusaders. This episode does a fantastic job of blending classic Halloween themes with the everyday realism and dry humor King of the Hill is known for. The episode captures the essence of small-town life, the love for Halloween, and the humorous lengths people will go to protect or ruin a good time. It's a down-to-earth yet festive watch for anyone who appreciates the quirks of small-town America and the joy of Halloween. Four, It's the Great Pumpkin, Charlie Brown. No Halloween list would be complete without this timeless classic. For over 50 years, It's the Great Pumpkin, Charlie Brown has been a go-to for Halloween viewing. The story follows Linus as he waits in a pumpkin patch for the mythical Great Pumpkin to rise and deliver presents, while the rest of the Peanuts gang goes trick-or-treating and enjoys the Halloween festivities. Its charm lies in its simplicity. The beautiful autumn animation, the heartfelt story, and the gentle humor make it perfect for the whole family. This episode doesn't rely on scares, but instead focuses on hope, tradition, and the magic of the season. It's cozy, nostalgic, and an essential watch for anyone looking to embrace the softer side of Halloween.
When this boy meets world,
5. Boy Meets World, and then there was Sean. This Boy Meets World episode is a fan favorite and a brilliant Halloween special for 90s kids. The gang finds themselves in a slasher movie scenario, trapped inside their high school while being hunted by a masked killer. The episode is a perfect blend of horror, parody, and comedy, referencing classic horror films like Scream and I Know What You Did Last Summer. It's got jump scares, suspense, and plenty of self-aware humor, making it both a love letter to slasher films and a fun standalone episode. Whether you're a fan of the show or just looking for a spooky, nostalgic trip back to the 90s, this episode is packed with enough thrills and laughs to keep you entertained.
real love bursting out of every scene.
6. Family Matters Stevel. When you think of Family Matters, you probably don't expect true horror, but Stevel brings it in a way that's both fun and surprisingly creepy. In this episode, Steve Urkel's ventriloquist dummy, Stevel, comes to life and terrorizes the Winslow family in what feels like a full-on horror movie. The idea of an evil dummy is straight out of classic horror, and while the episode maintains the family-friendly tone of the show, there are some genuinely eerie moments. This is one of the most bizarre and memorable Halloween episodes from a 90s sitcom, showing that even wholesome shows can get a little spooky for the holiday. It's weird, wacky, and perfect for Halloween nostalgia. 7. Blackish, The Purge. In this hilarious Halloween episode of Blackish, Dre's competitive side kicks into high gear after Junior embarrasses him during a basketball game. Determined to teach his son a lesson, Dre unleashes his master pranking skills to remind Junior who's boss in the family. As Dre goes all out with his pranks, the rest of the neighborhood is swept up in Mischief Night, a local Halloween tradition where petty crimes are temporarily legal. From egging houses to playful pranks, things quickly spiral into chaos. The episode is packed with laughs as Dre's prank war with Junior escalates, all while poking fun at the craziness of Halloween traditions. It's a fun and spooky addition to your Halloween watch list, blending humor with a touch of mischief.
You have the facts of life, the facts of life. There's a time you gotta go and show you grow, and now you know about the facts of life.
8. The Facts of Life, The Halloween Show. In this spooky and hilarious Halloween episode, the girls at Eastland are convinced that something sinister is going on with Mrs. Garrett. After hearing eerie noises and noticing her strange behavior, they begin to suspect that their beloved house mother has committed a gruesome crime, slaughtering an old man and using his remains to make bratwurst. Their imaginations run wild as they investigate, leading to some hilarious misunderstandings and moments of pure campy fun. With spooky vibes and a classic blend of humor and suspense, this episode captures the playful spirit of Halloween and is a must-watch for some nostalgic chills and laughs.
became the Brady Bunch. The Brady Bunch. The Brady Bunch.
10. The Brady Bunch Fright Night. In this classic episode, the Brady kids play pranks on each other that escalate into a full-on Halloween fright fest. With fake ghosts and haunted house shenanigans, it's a playful and goofy take on Halloween that's perfect for fans of the show or anyone looking for something lighthearted. The episode is less about real scares and more about the fun of Halloween pranks, making it a great watch for those who want to keep things spooky but not too serious.
Can you repeat the question? You're not the boss of me now. You're not the boss of me now.
11. Malcolm in the Middle. Halloween approximately. Leave it to the Malcolm in the Middle crew to take Halloween chaos to the next level. The boys, always up to no good, decide to celebrate Halloween a few days late, wreaking havoc on their neighborhood with pranks and mischief. The episode perfectly captures the chaotic energy of Halloween from a kid's perspective, with plenty of laughs and absurd situations. If you love the wild, unpredictable nature of this show, this episode is a fantastic way to get into the Halloween spirit.
I know, you see, somehow the world will change for me.
12. Carly, I Scream on Halloween. When Carly and her friends decide to webcast from a spooky apartment, things quickly get out of hand, leading to a fun and creepy Halloween adventure. This episode of iCarly has all the humor and energy fans of the show love, combined with a haunted house vibe that's perfect for Halloween. It's a great option for younger viewers or anyone who wants a light, fun Halloween special without any serious scares.
Love and marriage, love.
13. Married with Children, Take My Wife Please. In this darkly hilarious Halloween episode, Al Bundy's long-standing wish for an escape from his miserable life comes to a head when the Grim Reaper, who suspiciously resembles a dark-haired pale version of Peggy, shows up to grant his wish. However, there's a catch. The Reaper won't take Al unless one of his family members says they need him. Meanwhile, Marcy ropes Peggy, Bud, Kelly, and Jefferson into dressing up as the village people for a party she's hosting, honoring infamous female spouse members. The episode blends Married with children's signature offbeat humor with some spooky Halloween antics, making it a perfect addition to any spooky season watch list. And that's our list of 13 Halloween episodes to watch this spooky season. Whether you're in the mood for some animated fun or live action scares, these episodes will definitely get you in the Halloween spirit. Let me know in the comments which ones you're planning to watch this year. Welcome back to Let's Run It Back. We're here with part 2 of our ultimate Halloween TV episode countdown, digging deeper into those nostalgic Halloween specials that bring back all the thrills, laughs, and spooky vibes from our favorite TV shows. In this lineup, we're diving into even more Halloween-themed episodes across genres and decades, from animated adventures to iconic live-action sitcoms. So if you're ready to sit back, relax, and relive some of the most memorable Halloween moments on TV, let's jump into part 2. We've got chills, laughs, and a whole lot of Halloween spirit in store, perfect for creating that nostalgic Halloween night vibe. Grab some popcorn, dim the lights, and let's dive into these 13 classic Halloween episodes. One, in Jackie Chan Adventures Fright Fight Night, Jackie is on a mission to recover the newest Oni mask before the Dark Hand snatches it up. Halloween adds to the chaos when El Toro and his young sidekick Paco come to visit, unaware of the supernatural dangers tied to the mask. As Jackie deals with the Dark Hand's relentless pursuit, El Toro and Paco stumble into the situation, not realizing the mask's power. The Oni mask brings out real demons that complicate Jackie's already tricky Halloween plans. This episode is packed with action and a perfect Halloween vibe, combining supernatural elements, martial arts, and a bit of spooky fun. The mix of suspense and humor, along with Jackie's classic charm, makes this one of the most memorable Jackie Chan Adventures episodes, reminding us why the show is still loved for its unique mix of action, mythology, and heart.
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Heroes in a half shell.
In this eerie Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles episode, Donatello's latest invention, the Dream-O-Vision helmet, leads to a Halloween nightmare like no other. When Michelangelo and Leonardo try out the gadget, they end up trapped in a horrifying dream world where the lair is haunted by a sinister, Freddy Krueger-esque figure. This twisted villain turns their worst fears into reality, forcing the two turtles to fight for their lives in a series of chilling nightmares. Packed with suspense and a darker tone than usual, this episode dives into the unsettling side of the TMNT universe, blending action with psychological horror as the brothers navigate their haunting dreamscape. It's a memorable Halloween special that stands out for its unique concept and spooky thrills, showing just how versatile the Turtles' adventures can be.
Power Rangers! Go, go, Power Rangers!
3. Mighty Morphin Power Rangers Zed's Monster Mash. For Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, Halloween doesn't get more epic than Zed's Monster Mash. Lord Zed is out for revenge, raising an army of his most monstrous villains to unleash havoc on the Rangers. The stakes are high, and the Rangers face a lineup of foes in a new kind of showdown, set against the backdrop of Halloween. The episode is a perfect blend of spooky thrills and the action-packed sequences we all know and love. The Power Rangers' battle with these resurrected monsters is intense, filled with martial arts action, quick cuts, and that classic over-the-top style that makes Mighty Morphin Power Rangers so iconic. The Halloween setting just amplifies the fun, making this episode a must-watch for anyone looking for nostalgic superhero action with a spooky twist.
So go to Gullah Gullah Island.
Gullah Gullah. Just take your foot in your hand.
4. Gullah Gullah Island, Gullah Gullah Ghoul Land. If you're looking for a Halloween special with a gentler, kid-friendly approach, Gullah Gullah Island's Gullah Gullah Ghoul Land is a perfect pick. This episode is full of the warmth and whimsy that define the show, making it a comforting watch with just a dash of Halloween spirit. The cast dives into Halloween festivities, exploring traditional Halloween fun like trick-or-treating and spooky costumes. With Binya Binya and the rest of the gang celebrating Halloween, the episode captures the excitement of the holiday in a way that's relatable for kids and nostalgic for adults. It's lighthearted, fun, and packed with a sense of community and warmth that's rare in most Halloween specials. Gullah Gullah Ghoul Land reminds us of the simpler joys of Halloween, and watching it feels like stepping back in time to a Halloween celebration from the 90s.
Here you are in mine. Yes, we have a sweet life.
5. The Sweet Life of Zack and Cody. The Ghost of 613, Halloween at the Tipton Hotel. Gets creepy when Zack and Cody set out to investigate room 613, rumored to be haunted. Known for pranks and mischief, the twins can't resist the chance to explore the haunted room, dragging friends and even some of the hotel staff into their shenanigans. From ghostly pranks to mysterious happenings, the Ghost of 613 plays on classic haunted hotel tropes, while keeping the tone light and fun. The episode combines humor and suspense, creating a Halloween experience that's entertaining for Disney Channel fans. Watching Zack and Cody face spooky surprises in a familiar setting makes this episode a nostalgic favorite, perfect for anyone who remembers the antics of the twins at the Tipton. 6. The Adventures of Pete and Pete, Halloweeny. If you're looking for a Halloween special with a quirky twist, The Adventures of Pete and Pete delivers in Halloweeny. Little Pete is on a mission to keep Halloween alive, determined to trick or treat even as Halloween comes under attack from the pumpkin eaters, people who think Halloween is childish and are trying to shut it down. What follows is Pete's quest to keep the spirit of Halloween going, even as he faces opposition from his own neighbors. With its offbeat humor and heartwarming message, Halloweeny is a reminder of why Halloween is such a cherished holiday. The episode perfectly captures the spirit of rebellion that comes with being a kid who just wants to have fun. For anyone who's ever fought to keep Halloween traditions alive, this episode hits close to home. In this Halloween-themed home improvement episode, Brad is excited to host his very own Halloween party, with plans to dress up as Raggedy Andy alongside his girlfriend Jennifer as Raggedy Ann. But things take a dramatic turn when Jennifer arrives with Brad's rival, Danny, dressed as his date. Hurt by Brad's choice not to pick her for his kickball team, Jennifer thinks he's not invested in their relationship and decides to make a statement with her costume choice. Meanwhile, Tim is busy creating his Catacombs of Terror, a spooky haunted house experience in the garage, aiming to give Brad's party guests a fright they won't forget. This episode brings classic home improvement Halloween charm, blending Tim's over-the-top enthusiasm for scares with Brad's teenage relationship drama. It's a perfect mix of laughs and frights, capturing the series' unique take on family-centered Halloween fun. 8. Everybody Hates Chris. Everybody Hates Halloween. Set in the 1980s, Everybody Hates Halloween follows Chris as he tries to make the most out of Halloween, despite the challenges he faces with his strict mom and the mishaps that come with trick-or-treating. Chris just wants a normal Halloween experience, but things rarely go according to plan in his world. From costume embarrassments to mishaps in the neighborhood, Chris's Halloween quickly spirals out of control. Filled with relatable slice-of-life humor, this episode gives us a funny yet nostalgic look at Halloween through Chris's eyes. It's a reminder of the ups and downs of Halloween night, making it a relatable and funny Halloween pick. 9. Roseanne. Trick Me Up, Trick Me Down. Halloween is serious business for the Connor family, and Trick Me Up, Trick Me Down shows just how far Roseanne will go to get in on the Halloween spirit. In this episode, she suspects her neighbor is planning a revenge prank after a previous encounter. The episode is filled with Halloween costumes, pranks, and over-the-top antics, capturing that perfect blend of humor and Halloween chaos. This episode is iconic for fans of Roseanne, bringing all the Halloween spirit with laughs and a touch of chaos that makes it feel like a true Halloween party. It's a fun, nostalgic way to celebrate the holiday with the Connors, who always know how to make Halloween a big deal.
She is literally the Polaroid of perfection. She has
10. Clueless. Scream Murray, Scream. Halloween takes a dramatic turn in the Clueless Halloween special. When Murray becomes convinced that something sinister is happening at school, things quickly spiral as paranoia spreads among his friends. With its high school setting and teenage drama, this episode puts a spooky twist on typical high school life. The episode has fun with classic horror movie elements, using them in a way that's both suspenseful and playful. It's the perfect mix of lighthearted and spooky, and fans of Clueless will enjoy seeing their favorite characters in Halloween mode. 11. Sabrina the Teenage Witch, a Halloween story. In a Halloween story, Sabrina faces the challenge of needing to be in two places at once: her friend's Halloween party and her family's annual Halloween celebration in the other realm. To solve the problem, Sabrina creates a double of herself, but her double quickly starts causing chaos. The episode is full of magical mishaps, showcasing Sabrina's magical abilities and the unique Halloween traditions of the witching world. With its Halloween parties, costumes, and a glimpse into the other realm, this episode is packed with Halloween spirit. It's a fun, spooky watch for fans of Sabrina the Teenage Witch. The combination of magical shenanigans and Halloween traditions in the other realm makes a Halloween story a classic. Whether it's the quirky spells or Sabrina's relatable teenage dilemmas, this episode captures the show's charm and adds a seasonal touch, making it a must-watch for Halloween. 12. Family Matters. Stevel 2, this time he's not alone. Halloween takes a sinister turn in Family Matters with the return of Stevel, a possessed ventriloquist dummy version of Steve Urkel. In Stevel 2, this time he's not alone. Stevel is back with a new accomplice, Carlsbad, a doll version of Carl Winslow. Together, the two creepy puppets terrorize the Winslow household, leading to a spooky and unforgettable Halloween night. This episode is one of Family Matters' most memorable, leaning into horror tropes while keeping the comedic heart of the series. The eerie antics of Stevel and Carlsbad add a perfect mix of scares and laughs, giving fans a Halloween episode that's both funny and genuinely creepy. 13. Freaks and Geeks, Tricks and Treats. Wrapping up our list is Freaks and Geeks, with its Halloween episode, Tricks and Treats. This episode explores the different sides of Halloween through Lindsay and Sam, who both have very different Halloween experiences. Sam wants to go trick-or-treating with his friends, but he's starting to feel a bit too old for it. Meanwhile, Lindsay gets caught up with her new friends and ends up joining them for some Halloween mischief. Tricks and Treats perfectly captures that bittersweet transition from childhood to teenage years, where Halloween starts to change meaning. It's a nostalgic and heartwarming look at Halloween, full of the show's signature authenticity and emotional depth. For anyone who's experienced the awkwardness of outgrowing trick-or-treating, this episode hits close to home and serves as a fitting end to our Halloween episode countdown. And that's a wrap on part 2 of our Halloween TV episode list. From nostalgic sitcoms and spooky puppet showdowns to magical mischief and teenage trick-or-treat dilemmas, we've covered the best Halloween-themed episodes to keep you entertained all spooky season. With Final Destination Bloodlines just released, it's the perfect time to take a deadly stroll down memory lane. For over 2 decades, the Final Destination franchise has given us a front-row seat to some of the most creative and gruesome death scenes ever put on screen, where cheating death only makes things worse. Whether you watch these movies for the shocking kills, the suspenseful setups, or just to see how wild things could get, everyone has their favorite entry. But which ones rise above the rest, and which ones flatlined? Today we're ranking every Final Destination movie from worst to best, including Bloodlines, the brand new installment that just dropped and left quite an impact. I'm basing this on a mix of factors: the quality of the story, how inventive the deaths were, how memorable the characters are, and overall entertainment value. And we can't talk about this franchise without recognizing the late, great Tony Todd, whose ominous presence as coroner William Bloodworth became a symbol of fate itself. His voice and delivery gave these movies a chilling gravitas, and his final appearance in Bloodlines is one that hit home emotionally. I've also got a bit of personal history with the original that I'll share when we get there. Let's run it back and count them down before death catches up with us.
We have to get out of here. We're all gonna die, all right? There's gonna be a crash.
6. Final Destination 4, 2009, aka The Final Destination. This one is unfortunately the black sheep of the franchise. Coming off the moderate success of Final Destination 3, this fourth entry tried to capitalize on the new wave of 3D hype. But instead of enhancing the experience, the 3D felt more like a gimmick that distracted from the actual horror. While the film opens with a racetrack disaster that had potential, the execution just didn't measure up, feeling more like a video game cutscene than a chilling set piece. The characters in this installment were some of the weakest the franchise had to offer. They were mostly underwritten, lacking the personality and presence to make the audience care about their fates. Without a strong emotional connection, the deaths, no matter how elaborate, don't land with the same impact. Even Nick, the supposed lead, felt like a placeholder protagonist. Another big issue was that the deaths started to veer into cartoonish territory. Yes, the Final Destination films have always had a flair for the outrageous, but this one dialed it up to near parody levels. The balance of tension and dread was lost in favor of over-the-top gore and clunky digital effects. It became less about fearing death and more about watching a roller coaster of Rube Goldberg gone wrong. Despite being marketed as the final destination, fans were grateful the franchise didn't stop here. The film's lackluster storytelling and hollow thrills nearly derailed the series, but thankfully it wasn't the last ride. What could have been a send-off felt more like a placeholder, proving that 3D can't cover for weak writing. This truly is the only film in this franchise I don't like, and feel is a bad movie, meaning it's luckily only up from here.
The ones who got off that roller coaster are still going to die.
5. Final Destination 3, 2006. Final Destination 3 kicks off with one of the most iconic openings in the entire franchise, a roller coaster disaster at an amusement park that taps directly into a universal fear. The Devil's Flight sequence is fast, brutal, and incredibly effective, setting a chilling tone that immediately grabs your attention. Even if you know what's coming, the suspense of seeing it unfold still hits hard. While it's not quite as massive as the highway pileup from the second film, the visceral fear of being trapped on a ride gone wrong makes this a standout intro that holds up after all these years. What really keeps this sequel engaging is the creativity behind the death scenes. The Tanning Bed Inferno is arguably one of the most infamous and disturbing in the entire series, and the nail gun sequence is gruesome in all the right ways. These elaborate set pieces are where the movie shines, embracing the over-the-top, Rube Goldberg-style traps fans come to see. There's a slickness to how the tension builds in each moment, and the kills are paced well enough to keep the suspense moving. It's very much a movie that understands what its audience is here for, and delivers on that promise. That said, it doesn't stray far from the formula. By the third entry, the beats of the franchise were well established, and this film doesn't make any major effort to reinvent them. The plot is predictable, and outside of Mary Elizabeth Winstead's strong performance as the lead, most of the characters are paper thin, and exist mainly to die in creatively staged ways. You're not emotionally invested in the group beyond curiosity about how they'll go out, and the absence of Tony Todd as Bloodworth is definitely felt. While he makes a fun voice cameo, his physical presence is missed. It would have added some gravitas to the film's mythology. Still, despite those shortcomings, Final Destination 3 remains a fun, tension-filled ride. The kills are memorable, the pacing is tight, and the slightly darker sense of humor helps give the movie its own identity. It may not be the deepest or most original installment, but it nails the essentials of what fans love about the franchise. If you're watching these movies for the thrills, the shocks, and the elaborate setups, this one absolutely earns its spot near the middle of the pack, and maybe a little higher depending on how much you love the chaos.
There's gonna be a huge accident. You guys all heard about Flight 180, right?
Surely you must have read about the kid who had a dream about a plane blowing.
4. Final Destination 2, 2003. If there's one thing this sequel is known for, it's the freeway pileup scene. An opening so intense that many people still think twice when driving behind a logging truck. That disaster is one of the most memorable in horror history, setting the tone for a film that pushes the envelope with bigger and bloodier set pieces. It lets you know from the jump that this is going to be a wild ride. Final Destination 2 leans fully into the franchise's love for Rube Goldberg-style deaths. The kills are exaggerated and outrageous, but in the best way. From the infamous airbag scene to the elevator decapitation, each death feels like its own gruesome short film. It's ridiculous, yes, but it's also a blast. The characters, while still fairly thin, are more entertaining this time around, and the return of Clear Rivers from the first film helps ground the story. Her connection to the original gives this sequel more weight, and her grim knowledge of death's design raises the stakes. The cast plays their roles well enough to keep you invested between death scenes. Tony Todd returns here as Bloodworth, though only in a brief scene. Still, his voice and demeanor continue to add that creepy mythos to the franchise. His cryptic warnings about new life give the film a touch of mystery, even if the story doesn't do a whole lot with it. At the end of the day, Final Destination 2 is pure chaotic fun. It may not be the smartest entry in the series, but it's arguably the most entertaining. It's exactly what a sequel should be. Bigger, bloodier, and completely over the top.
I had a vision.
3. Final Destination 5, 2011. By the time Final Destination 5 came out, the franchise had hit a low point with the previous entry, but this movie came in like a defibrillator. From the start, the bridge collapse sequence set a new bar, blending shock, suspense, and practical effects in a way that reminded fans why they fell in love with the series to begin with. It immediately let audiences know the filmmakers were taking this one seriously and wanted to redeem the series. What separated this movie from most of its predecessors was how it introduced a fresh spin on the rules. The idea that you could escape death by killing someone else added a layer of moral tension and allowed the characters to make darker, more complex decisions. It was no longer just a countdown to death. It became a psychological game. That change in dynamic brought some much-needed freshness to the formula. The characters were better fleshed out than usual, and the acting overall felt stronger. The pacing was tight. The build-up to each kill carried genuine suspense, and when the deaths did happen, they weren't just shock value. They were sharp, ironic, and often terrifying. The gymnastics accident, and the laser eye scene in particular, managed to make people squirm with anticipation even more than the gore itself. And then there was Tony Todd, who had a larger role this time around as Bloodworth. His voice, his stare, his cryptic warnings, they added a layer of weight and mystery that the franchise had been missing. His appearance wasn't just fan service, it helped re-anchor the entire story in the larger mythology of Death's design. By the end of the movie, fans finally felt like the series was back on track. Best of all was the ending twist. Discovering this entire movie was a prequel to the first film. That reveal wasn't just clever, it was a full-circle moment that rewarded longtime fans. It felt like a natural endpoint, and for a long time, it was the perfect final chapter. That is, until Bloodlines came along and found one more story worth telling.
So death came back for them one by one. Since there were so many survivors, it took years for death to get to all of them.
2. Final Destination Bloodlines 2025. I'll be honest, I didn't expect to love Final Destination Bloodlines as much as I did, but it really does breathe new life into the franchise, taking the familiar concept and twisting it in a fresh, character-driven way. This time, the story follows a single family across generations, with death seemingly targeting their bloodline. That central focus gave the film more emotional weight and made the threat feel even more personal. The characters here are genuinely likable, and the family dynamic gives you something to root for beyond just the survival of random teenagers. There's a sense of legacy and trauma, and how the past shapes who we become. It doesn't feel like just another batch of cannon fodder. These are people you care about. That alone makes the near-death tension hit a little harder. The tone is different from the original. It's not as serious or brooding, but that's not a bad thing. The film sprinkles in humor, and most of the jokes actually land. It doesn't go full comedy horror, but it allows for a more modern and relatable tone. The pacing is sharp, and it balances its emotional beats and jump scares better than you'd expect from a sixth entry in a long-running series. Now let's talk about the big moment, Tony Todd's final appearance as William Bloodworth. It's a powerful, emotional cameo that not only serves as a send-off for his character, but for the man himself. In one of the film's most moving scenes, we finally get Bloodworth's origin story, something fans have speculated about for years. It explains his connection to death and why he knows what he knows. It ties everything together beautifully, and it's a fitting tribute to a horror legend who made every scene he was in unforgettable. Sure, some of the kills rely heavily on CGI, which has always been a weak spot in recent entries. But to the film's credit, the effects are much more polished than in FD4, and the death setups are still thrilling. Between the new family-driven concept, the smart writing, the humor that mostly hits, and Tony Todd's final bow, Bloodlines doesn't just earn its place in the franchise, It's the new gold standard for how to revive a long-dormant horror series.
Please explode! It's not a joke! It's not a joke!
1. Final Destination 2000. The original Final Destination will always hold a special place for me, not just because it launched an entire franchise, but because it dropped while I was a sophomore in high school. For whatever reason, this movie ended up being played constantly during my junior and senior years anytime a teacher brought in a DVD or we had a substitute. It became a sort of unofficial class film, and even though we saw it so often, I never got tired of it. It was just such a weird and unexpected movie to be the go-to, especially since it wasn't your typical teen comedy or drama. What made Final Destination stand out back then was just how fresh the concept felt. The idea that death was an invisible force coming for you, without a killer in a mask or a monster chasing you, was incredibly eerie. The tension came from everyday situations, taking a shower, walking into the kitchen, or driving behind a truck. Suddenly, the mundane felt menacing. It made you think twice about the chain of events around you. And then there was Tony Todd. The moment he steps on screen as coroner William Bloodworth, you instantly feel the tone shift. His performance was brief, but it was chilling and unforgettable. He didn't just explain death's rules, he embodied them. His cryptic warnings and ominous presence became iconic, and it's no wonder fans wanted more of him in future sequels. Even without being a killer himself, he became one of horror's most memorable figures. The cast helped sell the concept too. Devon Sawa's performance as Alex was the perfect mix of paranoia and determination. Ali Larter brought intensity and depth as clear, and even Seann William Scott offered a likable performance outside of his usual comedic roles. The characters felt more grounded than in later sequels, and the pacing was tight, drawing you in without overstaying its welcome. Above all, the original nailed the tone. It had mystery, suspense, and just the right amount of supernatural edge. It was a horror film that played with fate and consequence, and it left a lasting impact not just on the genre, but on pop culture. Even now, it remains one of the franchise's most effective entries. And for me, it'll always be the one that reminds me of those strange high school days when death's design became the class favorite. And that's the full ranking, from the low points to the absolute highs of the Final Destination franchise. Whether you came for the wild kills, the twisted tension, or the creeping fear that death is always around the corner, this series has managed to stick with us for over 2 decades. And with Bloodlines, it feels like the franchise not only found new life, but found a real reason to return. Of course, none of this would be complete without acknowledging the legendary Tony Todd. His final appearance as Bloodworth in Bloodlines wasn't just a cameo, it was a farewell. A haunting, emotional, and fitting send-off for the man who gave the series its soul. He wasn't just a character, he was death's voice, and horror fans will never forget the weight he brought to every scene. So what's your favorite Final Destination film? Do you agree with my ranking, or did I leave your top pick too low on the list? Let me know in the comments. I'm always down to run it back and hear different takes. That wraps up our Halloween Kickoff compilation. Spooky nostalgia from the shows that gave us chills, the specials that made October feel magical, and the movies that kept us checking over our shoulders long after the credits rolled. As the season begins, we'll have plenty more tricks, treats, and throwbacks coming your way all October long. A huge shout out and heartfelt thank you to our amazing throwback tier members, Peace by Chaos, Thicula, iCritic, Jeremy Bowen, Mr. Blanks, and Sonic and Leighton Fan. Your support means the world, and you're helping keep the nostalgia alive in a big way. I also want to thank all the other awesome members who support the channel. Whether you're new or you've been rocking with us from the beginning, I appreciate every single one of you. If you enjoy this trip down the creepy side of memory lane, don't forget to like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and tap that new hype button to help the channel grow. Thanks for watching, and as always, keep the nostalgia alive.